Hi, in this video I'd like to discuss some thinking I've been doing on the topic of, obtaining knowledge and becoming a better decision maker and thus becoming more wise in the way that you look at things. So, as I was thinking about this, about the idea of of basically understanding things to a degree that allows you to be better at making decisions, I concluded, although it's not really a conclusion, but I thought to myself that there seems to be two things that you gotta have in order to become a wiser person. And those two things are that you have to obtain knowledge, number one. You have to know things. But you also have to think things over to develop your own understanding. And so, in this video, I'd like to discuss a little bit more what I mean by that. So, the first factor in this is essentially, I'd like to think of it as an awareness of the world, an understanding of things that happen in reality, in the world that we all live in, that knowledge gives to us. So you have to be aware of a wide array of things to be wise, I believe, because to be wise is to understand how to make good decisions, and decision making involves an understanding of the different choices available. But the second factor that I also think is crucial and necessary to becoming a wiser person is the comprehension of this worldly knowledge of the things that we see that is developed through reflection. And I think that a combination of both learning about things within the world that we exist in, and taking the time to think about what those things mean, to me, is a combination that results in better decision making, and thus the state of being wise to a greater extent, whatever that means. So, first of all, I think it's important to recognize that to be aware of things isn't enough. It isn't enough to just know that things are happening. You must also, in addition to knowing about them, you must understand these things. And additionally, I'm breaking up the two factors that I think are that contribute to being wise, and I'm trying to say that neither one of them can exist on its own. And so that's true, that I think that's true, that being aware of things isn't enough. You must understand them. But understanding things isn't enough if you don't have enough things to understand. So basically, you can do all the reflection imaginable and really understand to a great extent, I guess, what you do know or what you have been exposed to. But you won't be wise as a result of that, because you're dealing with a limited number of things to reflect upon, I guess. So, how does one achieve how does one get to a good place in both of these areas? This is something I was thinking about, because I do a lot of reflection. I'm making these videos now. I've been making these more recently, and they are an example of me reflecting on things. But also before that, before I ever did this, I also did a lot of writing. And especially over the past few months, I got back into reflecting on just aspects of my day, but more importantly than that, ideas that I was having, to try to consider what what makes the most sense out of the different conclusions that I might draw. And so I've done a lot of that. But one thing that I've lacked consistently is a wide knowledge of things, a wide just experience of different things. And so I was thinking to myself, I can do all the reflection that I want, and it's good, but you need both things. You need a good amount of input as well. And so in trying to think about how I can become more wise, how I can become essentially a better decision maker, I think the prescription that I've made for myself and that I think is worth considering for people, possibly, is that you want to read widely and you want to write consistently and often. And it doesn't have to be writing, but basically I mean reflecting. And I think writing is a good way of doing that. So reading and writing, I mean, I know it sounds like a simple conclusion, but I think that when you look at what it means to be wise, or what it requires to be wise, and I believe it's those two factors of knowing about a wide range of things and also really understanding what you've interacted with, I think that reading accomplishes one aspect of that, which is it brings in a lot of information that you become aware of. And I think writing is helpful in the other part of developing an understanding of the things that you've encountered to a degree that you can reason upon these things and things that come up in the future and make better decisions as a result. So when I think about it for myself, it might not be the same for everybody, but when I think about these two factors, I think I've done a good job reflecting on things. It's something that I enjoy doing sometimes, and I've done it because I've thought that it's a good thing to do. I've just done a lot of writing and thinking about things, but what I haven't done is actually taken in a bunch of new information. And so I feel like that is what I want to focus on improving, because it's the thing that I think I need to improve at most. And so that's what I have been thinking about, is how can I improve the amount that I know? And I've determined that I need to read more. And there's other ways of learning, of course. There are, but I think that reading is one important method of learning that can expose you to a wide range of things in a relatively short amount of time. Now, I am kind of a slow reader, so it's a bit more time than maybe it would be for other people, and I'm trying to actually think about if I can improve my reading speed while maintaining my understanding or my ability to make sense of the information. But anyway, yeah, I think that reading is a good thing to try to increase. But it doesn't have to just be reading. Basically, I think it's important to increase your learning in the things that you're taking in. And the reason that I think this is really important is that if you don't read or just obtain knowledge, you become rather limited in what you can reflect on, as I kind of said earlier. And you may come to you could come to, in your reflections, a lot of good conclusions that make sense based on the understanding that you have. But they could be incomplete. They could be a small part of a greater theory that already exists that you just don't know about. And so you're spending all of this time coming up with things that make sense to you and may even be accurate or helpful, but they could just be a small portion of something that somebody else has already created. They've made maybe simpler, they've refined it more. And so that's why I think it's really important to search out for information that already exists, because knowledge allows you to reflect on ideas that have already been developed. And that is obviously an amazing thing, because ultimately, I think everybody would like to believe that they can think things that nobody's ever thought of and solve problems in this original way. But the truth is that most great ideas have probably already been thought of. And if you can read enough, you'll come across enough of these so that you don't have to do that work yourself, and you can instead kind of compile everything that you have come across and take the best parts of everything, or just think about different aspects of the different things that you've come across to just have a better understanding of what different opinions are. And I think that's really hugely beneficial. And additionally, obtaining more knowledge like this is also a very humbling experience, because, as I said before, it makes you realize that most great ideas, or some of the best ideas that you might ever come across or think, already exist. Somebody already thought them. And all you have to do is find those ideas. And then, as I said, it's not enough to just find them. You have to understand them as well, and that's where the reflection comes in. I think a lot of people do make that mistake of reading a lot of different stuff, interacting with a lot of different things, but never taking the time to incorporate them into their understanding, where they try to really reason those things out, and reason those ideas out and make sense of them, so that it is actually they're interacting with it and they can use the information that they're gaining. But yeah, I think that's a problem that a lot of people have. I think for me, of course, I think reflection is something you can improve at. You can really improve at reflecting on things regardless of how much you do it already. There's things you can do to enhance it, I guess. But for me specifically, because I feel like just the experience of making an attempt to obtain new knowledge, that is the factor of the two that I kind of thought of that I really want to focus on. But yeah, I think obtaining knowledge is just a humbling experience. It allows you to see that the ideas that you think, maybe you thought you came up with something, is like, this is so original. Like, I don't think I've never heard anybody else discuss this. It makes so much sense to me. I'm a genius, right? Like, that thought I don't know, maybe I'm just a narcissist, but I've had that thought before. But I think as I've read more, as I've come across more ideas, I realized that any idea that I think that I'm a genius for coming up with, has already existed. And the conclusion that I made was probably a result of the fact that I had heard enough of the ideas surrounding it to make that relatively simple jump, perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, reading more allows you to see that so many ideas that you might think you came up with or are original to you really already existed. People had already thought of them. And if you can gain an understanding of those ideas through coming across them and then reflecting on them, you can become very valuable in helping yourself and helping other people as well. So I think that's all. 15 minutes, that seems like enough time to waste for anybody who comes across this. So yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.